All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Nick from ChannelBytes. We are excited today to have a conversation with two fine gentlemen in the technology space. We are very honored to have Taylor and Todd here to talk about really the secrets and the issues and just about MDUs and technology for the next little bit, from real world challenges to just some insights that we think that will be helpful for our listening audience in this realm. So, but before we jump into that conversation, maybe we can just do a quick introductions for Taylor and Todd. It's like TNT. Wow, like man, you guys are explosive,
TNT
right?
show.
Yeah, TNT show. So
exactly.
we're gonna blow some stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, Taylor, why don't you just who are you, where you're from, and then we'll flip it to Todd.
Yeah, no problem. So good afternoon, Taylor Jones. I'm the CTO for Elauwit Connection, and I actually am out of Columbia, South Carolina.
Awesome. And Todd.
And Todd Thorp. I'm with Cambium Networks, Director of Business Development, and I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. We're like 2 hours apart. And that was not planned, I don't think.
Yeah. No.
Awesome. Well, guys, like I said, there's so much conversations going on these days around MDUs and around wireless. Obviously, I think our audience already is familiar with what MDUs are, but I think maybe before we jump into it, let's maybe expand on what can an MDU be. I mean, obviously it's multi-dwelling unit, but from your guys' perspective, what's the range of the MDU when it comes to just the definition of that?
I mean, the multifamily market. Yeah, you're right. I mean, like I think for the federal government, I think it's 4 units or more is an MDU, and I think kind of in the there's that whole market of kind of 4 units up to like 16 to 32. But I mean, in the space that I operate in as Elauwit, we as a multifamily managed service provider, we're typically working with projects that are 24 units or larger. Most communities that we're providing our services into are typically 150 units or larger, but we have projects all the way down to around 24 or 20 units. And that's it all comes down to what the owner and the operator is looking to do, their mission, and what type of technology stack they want to see in their communities.
So let's jump into to that point. I mean, from the small to the large, we joke from a ChannelBytes perspective, we try to have Reddit level conversations. We don't try to have a lot of fluff. But what, like, for the small guys or even the medium and big size MDUs, what are the issues that they are having, from the property managers to maybe the asset managers, the people handling these MDUs and trying to make them profitable and make it a good experience? What are the real world challenges when it comes to technology and wireless?
Connectivity, I think, and keeping the resident from leaving from when their lease is up, right? Student housing is a little bit different, but so as far as the definition for multifamily, I think take it a step further, it's, Taylor hit it on the head about the property size, but you have your traditional multifamily when you're thinking of like, conventional, or you think of an apartment complex, you have student housing, you have senior properties, you have affordable, even, RV park, campground, marina, even though that's kind of transient. But
the short-term rental thing is starting to take off in terms of like, we're seeing communities that are just being built that are strictly short-term rentals. And it's like, really? It's not a hotel. Yeah. It's like, they'll take a portion of, it's like 300 units of apartments and then 100 units of short-term rental. And they may be operated by the same management company, or it may be a short-term rental operator, but there are communities that are being driven by short-term need. And they want kind of connectivity and services on, and when you move in, it works. And so I think Todd's like the connectivity is an issue. We see just, kind of the larger plan and like, how does it all work together? When the larger market has kind of these islands of connectivity, they don't have a backbone or kind of the brains of a community. And I think the newer communities being built that are looking at bringing in a building wide managed service provider, they realize they need it's no different than a corporate enterprise. It's like, if everybody's just doing IT on their own, and kind of the shadow IT world, if you're in the enterprise space, everybody's just doing it their own way. then there's security risks, there's cost risks. If everybody's paying for the same SaaS product 300 times, you're going to be paying more than if they went out and got a master contract for 300 licenses of that SaaS suite. So if you kind of compare it to enterprise, and a managed service provider comes in with a solution, with a plan, with the right team, covers the dots on infrastructure, security, customer service, all those dots that you have to check. You need a team to approach it versus just kind of letting everybody do it themselves.
So let's maybe drill down a little bit on the short-term example you said. I mean, are the benefits or the issues different for a short-term from a technology perspective? Because at the end of the day, right, it's not about the tech. It's not about the technology from their perspective, probably, right? It's about what problems are they solving.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, my answer would be no, because to me, it's really no different than if you go to a resort or you move into an apartment complex. You might be staying at a resort or a hotel for a night or a week when you're on vacation. You move into an apartment complex, your lease is 12 months, or for a student, it's 9. But at the end of the day, that experience is going to be the same. And it just has to connect when you move in, and the more seamless you can make it and easy for that guest or that resident, that's the value.
Yeah. So let's but break it down even further.
It's like flipped.
What just? I don't know what happened.
All right, that's wireless.
I'm not touching anything. I'm not touching anything.
We wanted to have a unique experience here, right? So, yeah. I guess one of the questions really, what does the technology, like, how does that actually make a difference, though? So, I mean, Taylor, you've talked about like the team approach and why that's important, and the simplicity of it, of coming in and the technology's on. But to break it down to people that are looking at it from an ROI perspective and not technologists and not as in the weeds and in the space as you two, like, translate that down, right? Give us the view of why does the technology even matter?
Well, I think it matters on a couple things, but I think it's the concept of, as I said, if you buy 300 things individually, you're going to be paying more. Each person's going to be paying a higher price. And so when a property looks at it and says, I want to bring in managed Wi-Fi, high-speed internet, fiber to the unit, broadband, whatever flavor it is to that unit, and provide it to all my residents, they're able to bring it in and, with the managed service provider, be able to create an opportunity where there's, a delta that they can get a return on their investment. So it's important that, these owners and operators, they're investing in the system, they're investing in the infrastructure. They may be paying the upfront cost for the equipment and some of the services, or it may be on a long, kind of a part of the monthly fee, but there is a delta there between what the service provider is charging and what the owner operator is able to charge and provide it. And the nice part is they're able to take that cost, and it's kind of back to the old days of bundling. And it's like, I'm bringing in smart door locks, smart thermostats, smart leak sensors, things like that are going to improve the quality of the experience in the building, but also make things easier for the residents. And those all have a recurring cost, and those costs previously had no way to be compensated except be covered except by increasing rents. And now we're able to keep rents flat and charge a technology fee, and all these various costs are in there, and basically the residents paying that technology fee and getting a high-speed internet solution to their unit that's reliable, dependable, secure, allows them some opportunities to use it all across the building, and then for the owner operator, they're able to have a revenue stream that covers all these additional tech stack costs that previously, other than increasing the rents, they didn't have a way to do it.
And I was just going to say quickly too, technology matters so much. Back in the day, we would see a lot of what I would call poor man's Wi-Fi, where, and in a smaller property, especially, where an owner would take just like a cable modem, and then they would, maybe it's a 20, 30 unit, even 50 unit property, but then they would put just like a cable modem, and then they would let everybody kind of share that, and thinking that they're providing a really good product or service for the resident. And in reality, yeah, it's cheap, and it's just kind of, you just threw it in there, but it's a really bad solution. And it would be like taking a consumer grade, nothing wrong with Ring and Simply Safe and all those services out there, but to take that and put it into a 200 luxury high-rise apartment complex, from a bulk technology standpoint, is probably just not a good deployment. You want to use good enterprise grade equipment.
So it's like putting an Indy driver in a Yugo.
Well, yeah, nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
There's kind of the it's that kind of that consumer grade, and it's like, again, single family home model. That router or that equipment was made for an average family with 3.5 kids and 2 dogs and a picket fence and 3 devices each, and then we're gonna say, all right, now I have 300 apartments with 2 residents, each with 12 devices or 20 devices. And you need that enterprise grade equipment. And that enterprise concept is really about, it's about management. It's about feature sets. It's about the security, and it's all the bells and whistles in the background that make it better for the person and the group that is investing in that equipment. And basically, ultimately, the end user should really just have the same great experience. We want Wi-Fi that works. We want internet that just works. We want to be able to watch Netflix. And that's all we care about. And let the service provider in the background make sure it's all operating and providing the best experience.
So let's make it, we've talked about, that's the secrets of a reliable network in an MDU, right? So that was the premise of this. Let's give the listeners what's a real life example though of what can happen if you don't do it right. Like, what if you don't have it set up in a right way? What happens both?
The tenants move out.
Yeah, I have a friend who,
you could, it's a friend. You don't have to name names, but let's give the real examples of really like what happens if in these situations where it's not done right.
They blow up the leasing office. I mean, you kind of, to Todd's poor man's Wi-Fi. It's like you go and you get 30 Linksys routers. No offense to Linksys, but just, that's the old, we're all used to and that was what we all had back in, when they all came out. You throw those across a building and kind of, people are getting into each other's computers, and there's, screen casting, stuff up on Apple TVs that shouldn't be, because there's no, unit controls, and there's no security settings in place. Everybody's just kind of on a big shared network. And it gets bogged down. And I think, everybody's had a terrible Wi-Fi experience in hotels. And I think if that's kind of the concept, you say, that's what you could have, is like, if you take, I'm going to drive it to as low cost as possible. I'm going to take the smallest circuit, and I'm going to spend the least amount of money to get Wi-Fi in my building. And that's what hotels do. And that's not all hotel chains, but there is a large market of hotels where it's like, I got to get it down to the lowest cost possible. And we've all been there, and we've all had it not work, and we've all relied on our cell phones. That same thing, if you do that in multifamily, will happen to you, and your residents will use their phone, and then they'll start complaining, and then they'll start bugging your office every month, and then they'll eventually move out, or it gets up to the ownership and your asset manager or whoever, and they'll hear about it and decide that they got to do something different.
That's I'm sure nobody wants to get those calls.
No, I think we don't want to avoid that whatsoever. Yeah.
Let me ask you another.
Right. I'm sorry. Well, just see, and if you do it right, that takes the burden off of the leasing staff. The leasing staff, their job is to lease apartments, among many other things, of course, but to lease apartments and to take care of that property. And if you're providing the service correctly, that resident, just like in a hotel, you're calling down to the front desk because you can't get on the Wi-Fi, or you're marching down to the front desk. You're going to do that. You're just overwhelming your leasing staff with things that they just don't need to be involved with.
So one of the questions that was sent to us before this was from the asset manager side of the house. And the question was, with more and more work from home, being prevalent in MDUs and just in general, if from a just planning, budget planning, everything else, should they be thinking differently from a Wi-Fi technology because of that, or is it really not an issue because it's not going to be impacting the customer experience at all? So I guess that's a question from the audience.
I'll let Taylor, you go first.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's definitely an approach when you, we're all in a kind of the model where, you had 300 cable modems or, service providers, in with those 300 islands. It's all a shared system. And so it bogs it down where a managed service provider is going to look at it and design a system for those 300 apartments and make sure that the right equipment, the right, capacity out to the internet, out to the, to the wide world. So it does have an impact in making sure you have the right equipment, the right service, the right infrastructure in place. Make sure you got hardware that's going to handle that load, and make sure it's not that consumer grade stuff that will get bogged down when 5 or 10 devices get connected to it. And that's the big difference, where an enterprise device can handle 50, 100 devices connecting to it, and we might have one of those in an apartment versus a Best Buy style home router, which really, I mean, it's going to top out at 10, 15 devices. And that's why those mesh pods started getting really popular in homes, because people could throw them up all over their house, spread the number of devices around that connect, because it used to just be one router in their home, one Wi-Fi access point, and everything in their house. And as everybody started getting more and more devices, that would get bogged down. And so the mesh concept, those pods became popular because you could spread those devices out and split up the airtime. But I definitely think it's critical. They got to think through it. They need to get a partner, a technology partner, either the service provider or a consultant that can participate in helping that design it and make sure their vision and their kind of the persona, I mean, taking a marketing term, is targeted for, and is actually create a plan for it.
I think even work from home has made it even more impactful that you put in a managed Wi-Fi system with enterprise grade equipment, because when you think about it, people they're chewing up that bandwidth. And if you're working from home, and you're doing school work and things like that, it's so critical to have very reliable internet. And I think the last thing you want to do is put your resident in the position of being the IT person, where they have to bring their own router and they have to set up the service on their own and they have to manage it on their own. If you can take that off of their plate, moving is already stressful as it is. And the last thing you want to do is throw something else onto somebody when they move in. But what do you do when you move in? One of the first things you do is you make sure your internet's set up.
Yeah.
So another question that we were asked ahead of time was, what are they not being told? Like as a property manager, when a lot of times they go out for RFPs and they go try to get information, and it's really, what's the real truth? Like, what is the topic that nobody really wants to talk about, but is really important when you think about the customer experience and technology? Is there anything that you would give advice to them? Like, hey, this is a topic. It's not, you can't Google it. You're not going to find it anywhere, but like, it is something to be discussed.
Todd, you got one, or want me?
You go first. I'm trying to think of something. I mean,
I think it's, I think and I know this is like a Reddit level thing. We're supposed to be honest. I'm thinking through my head, like, all right, man, what is this? I think, one thing that comes to mind is just, there is some leasing staff involvement. Property staff has to be involved. And I think the concept that someone says, oh, you'll never hear, the internet stuff, you'll hear zero. I mean, we'd love to strive for that, but the properties, if done right, are making it's a revenue stream. It's covering costs. They're making a return on their investment. And to get that, there is that consideration that they will need to, their leasing staff, whether, resident service manager or a general manager or even the maintenance person, may get some requests because people are going to come to the front desk and say, hey, I'm getting, this internet from, XYZ that you guys bill me for. I've got questions, or I want something different. So I think there is some involvement. So, when they're modeling it or thinking through it, it's like, okay, making sure that that return is strong enough for them to participate. And, I think that's just, if they've got a good partner, though, they'll have the tools and the team to support them and make sure that it's being handled, and that if it does come to them, that they've got they know exactly the channels and who to talk to hand it off. And I think that's where the hidden truth of like someone like a managed service provider like my company, where we're very much a hold your hand, like we're going to be part of this. And if you get a request, like, exactly to go to Eric, and he's going to help you solve your issue for that resident. And he is there to support you. Where with some of the other service providers, they're just so large. I mean, they're account managers, their staff, there's so much turnover. They don't know who to go to. And they're just shooting off emails, shotgunning them all over the place, trying to get this one resident supported. And I think that's the truth that a lot of people need to know about is, you want somebody that's going to be there on day negative 180 while it's being built, and then on day 978, and you still know that person and have that trust and that relationship with.
And you'll be surprised because there is turnover. I wouldn't know the percentage of turnover for leasing managers at properties, but there is. And you'd be surprised at how many leasing managers have no idea who the internet provider is. You would ask them, and they literally, they don't know. They don't know what the arrangement is with the provider. And I think Taylor was dead on. There is some involvement that the property is going to have to do. It's not like completely hands off. And the more the provider educates that new leasing person that comes in, and make sure the owner is letting know that the leasing manager informing them so that they can be prepared versus walking into, something that they're not aware of. But it happens a lot more than we would like to think.
And I was thinking with like news construction, I also think the, probably something that, and there are some people out there that are doing a good job at this now, is like, get all your different tech, everybody that's going to need internet, like get them in the room early and get them talking, and make sure that, the camera vendor and the access control vendor and the DAS vendor, vending, parking, smart light, all IoT, building management systems. Like, a lot of times the GC kind of just has a lot of that scope just kind of buried in their responsibilities, but like pull those vendors out, get them talking with your ISP, make sure they have a plan, make sure they know where all the stuff's going to be interconnected, because that's the biggest problem. I always feel like it was the act like the AV day, was like you put in a really fancy AV system in a theater room, and then like no one knows how to use it in 3 months, and like how do you make that
remote? They're trying to
there's eight different remote. It's like, oh, there's a touchpad on the wall now. It's so much easier. But like, all right, well, it doesn't work. Like, well, who do I call? Well, there's no number, or who don't know it. Like, if you have a service provider that's kind of your technology GC, they're running your backbone, they're running your brains of the building, they're going to know who to talk to, and they're going to help you get those issues resolved. And a lot of it's just getting everybody to working together early and communicating and talking.
So let's actually end with on that point of, if you had the Knights of the Tech Roundtable for MDUs, who should be sitting in that table? Do you say bring everybody together? What are the people that should be sitting at that round table to have success for both everybody, from all the different people you said were involved, from the owners of the buildings to the property management to the residents? So who's at the table?
Taylor?
Oh, I think it's well, there's always the person paying for it. That's always important. Make sure that who's there.
Writing the check.
But it's looking around and saying like, all right, access control and security camera. There's a big player. AV. They're all going to need. These are things that all need the internet to work. Communicate. Smart building management systems. Regional or maintenance staff. Regional maintenance, or those type of people that are like that are responsible for the long-term viability of the community. It may be a spinoff from assets or asset management or something like that. But those people need to know what's been put in the building and what they, what's supposed to work on day one and what's supposed to work 5 years from now. I think that's the people that are responsible for that building are the ones that need to be there.
And a good provider will also, they'll help orchestrate that, because there are a lot of cooks trying to make this soup, and it can taste really bad and nobody wants to eat it when it's done. So don't, as an owner, or somebody on the ownership side, don't just leave things to chance. Ask a lot of questions, and a good provider will take that proactive approach of kind of being the orchestrator and trying to keep everyone together and keep everyone on point and keep everyone on schedule.
Yeah, and that's seen a lot more. I mean, this is just new construction, obviously. Seeing technology consultants that are kind of they're helping orchestrate that in the new construction. And because it's just, 15 years ago, it was like, IT, like we'll get to it. Somebody else will handle it. But now it's like, there's just so many things that are interconnected and working. The GC may have hired that person or the owner may have hired that consultant, but they're critical. And like, there are projects that don't have those individuals. Like, that doesn't mean the project's not going to be successful. As Todd said, there are service providers that step in and actually know those parties and can play that role and help pull everybody together that need to. And they're going to also have partners and vendors they've worked with as well that can solve your needs. So it's like you can lean on those groups and they can help bring in the right people.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, you have definitely brought the TNT. I think these are some great insights to share the truth of, have the people at the round table, so to speak, whether it be the owners, the managed service provider, the technology vendor, like having everybody there to have true transparency to be able to get the best result. I think great insights and great advice for people trying to both upgrade new buildings and as well as basically retrofit older buildings with the newer technology. So thank you so much. Obviously, Todd from Cambium, Taylor from Elauwit, thank you for your time, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.